All right. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Mauro. And in the studio today is my friend DeWayne Hart. He is a GRC, he's a renowned GRC government risk compliance expert, writer for Forbes Technology Council, founder of CMS Security, and author of The Security Mindset. DeWayne, sir, welcome to the studio.
Hey there, welcome. I can say one thing for sure is that it's great being here because I watch a lot of your podcasts.
That's awesome. I'm flattered. Thank you, sir.
And with some of the discussions that you have is a lot of the writings that I do. And as I listen to a lot of your information, I say to myself, now, I think you don't read my book or like this is my podcast.
It's like we're talk about the same, we're like singing from the same hymnal type thing.
Yeah, that's why, I wrote the Cybersecurity Mindset. I wanted people to be on the same page. I wanted people to embrace cybersecurity, but also to understand the roadmap for cybersecurity. Because now there's a narrative that cybersecurity is more of a problem than it is a solution. So if we think about that concept, what if we could have the same mindset? So when I wrote the Cybersecurity Mindset, I wanted to focus on that roadmap. What is it that people need in order to be a part of cybersecurity? One of the other ways I look at the Cybersecurity Mindset is that it's a blueprint. And I'll step back for a second because what I take a look into, and during the times of writing the Cybersecurity Mindset, is that what is it that I learned for 20 years of being in the United States Navy? And how does that transition over to cybersecurity? Because many of the seasoned veterans that are trying to be a part of technology are really great at what they do, because in the military, you always learn about operational resilience, and you learn about data protection, and you learn about how to solve problems. So you are positioned to do well in cybersecurity.
Yeah, we see that a lot, don't we? In cybersecurity, there's a lot of former military personnel, right? It's like a natural segue in career transition. Take us into the reason and what drove you to create the book and write the Cybersecurity Mindset. We will have a link to it in the show notes. I encourage everybody to get it. It's a fantastic book. But walk us through kind of what inspired you to put pen to paper or type the keyboard into creating the book.
Okay. I've been a part of the cybersecurity industry for a long time. I started when I first came out of the military, then I started to work on some government contracts, and then I moved on to some consulting firms, and I started my own company. And what I noticed most was that there's a missing link for cybersecurity. When I speak about the missing link is, how do you put the puzzle together? And as I have seen many books, which I do not go against, they are great books. But I felt that the community needed something that was going to lay out the blueprint, but also at the same time, how do you put that puzzle together? Because you think about many of the organizations, they are great at having the greatest technologies, and they have some of the great people to actually do that work. But at the end of the day, CISOs are saying, how come I still hack? What is wrong with my environment? So part of that is, what is the type of mindset that your organization has? So when I dive into the cybersecurity mindset, I am thinking about a progressive thinking model. How can I start someone from the bottom and develop them to a level where they understand cybersecurity? And there's a conversation that I had with a gentleman maybe about a couple of months ago. He said, that book is a solution-based book. I go, no. It is there to help you drive solutions, as they help you build your solutions. So when you think of the cybersecurity mindset, there are some key areas. The first section is talking about culture building, because that's the basic of all security. If you build that award-winning culture, then you can be good at what you do. Then it kind of
really is, isn't it? Let me Come join us as we go behind the scenes of today's most notorious cybercrime. Every time we get online, we enter their world. So we provide true storytelling to raise awareness, interviewing global leaders making an impact and improving our world, translating cybersecurity into everyday language that's practical and easy to understand. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast by downloading our episodes on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Let me pause you right there, because it's so important to get people to buy in and realize that when we get online, cybersecurity, right, for the organization is not up to the cybersecurity team. It's really all of our duty, right? Mm-hmm. And we should care as individuals about our own identities, our own finances, our families' identities, our families' finances. Because of that, kind of just bolster up our own cyber hygiene. And I think that helps build a cybersecurity mindset culture. And that's really important.
Yes, it's important because it's the foundation to whether you're going to be safe or not. Because you think that part of that culture is really people, right? Has your organization bought into your cybersecurity plan? Are they on board? Do they even want to be human firewalls? I use that concept a lot in the book, and I had a gentleman that asked me a couple of months ago. He said, "What is the meaning of a human firewall?" I said, "A human firewall is just having that defensive mindset." So in the cybersecurity mindset, I also focus on situational awareness, which is, trying to let individuals know that your environment means a lot. Then I move into risk-based thinking. And then I kind of transform everything on the business level. At this point, I want to transform people and to have them to think about cybersecurity, such as, how do we modernize enterprise? What is it about the workforce we should do? And last but not least is I want everybody to wear a hacker's hat, because if we can think like hackers, then we can beat them to the finish line. Simple.
That's exactly right. And there's a lot of analogies that I hear in cybersecurity, because we're trying to explain it to a lot of people that either maybe didn't grow up with the networked and telemetry and all that we have today, or it's digital natives that really don't understand the threats necessarily. Analogies to like learning to drive defensively, like situational awareness. Like when you're driving down the road, you're on the highway and there's 3 lanes of traffic, you have to be aware of what the car is doing in back of you. You have to be aware of what the car is doing in the next lane, because if you want to move over, you can't just move over. You have to be aware of how fast they're traveling. Are they speeding up? Is there somebody in your blind spot? All of those aspects whenever you're navigating online.
Well, you know what? Well, you got to be careful about your blind spots, because I write a lot about blind spots. Blind spots are dangerous. That's the most dangerous things that any IT enterprise can have. If you have a lot of blind spots, that means that you do not have actual indication of where you're most vulnerable. Where is your
right.
What are your open doors? What are the rogue devices on your network? So that's very important. But the last phase of the cybersecurity mindset is focused on having the adaptive mindset. This is a correlation to operational resilience, because you're going to have changes. So have you put the type of elements in place to make sure that your environment can survive if there is an adverse condition that happens? We have those that happen all the time. So are you ready for that? One of the other things that I want to say too about the cybersecurity mindset is for everyone. If you are a college student, you can use it for your papers and to learn. If you are a subject matter expert, it's your playbook. And if you are a C-suite professional, you can get your sales pitches prior to going to the boardroom.
Thinking like a hacker and thinking like that mindset, it's so important because you can't go through an operational resiliency, right? You can't go through uh, your day online and just think, well, would I take advantage of that? You may not, right? Like we individually might be pretty decent people and we don't think of adversarially, exposing somebody or have malintent to hurt somebody. But by thinking like a hacker, it starts to create a lens that you're able to view different scenarios through and say, if somebody were to exploit this or expose this or use this to gain entry somewhere else, how could they do it? And so you look at every entry point and every vulnerability completely differently. It's kind of like you can't defend against a foe you don't know, right? Like you can't defend against something if you don't start thinking like them.
Oh yeah, oh yes, that's true. And I think that just going forward, I think that much of society is going to adapt to that concept
Hmm.
because
I think
I
so
see
too.
cybersecurity as a quality of life issue now. It's not more than just a digital space that's separated from everyone because we can't survive without cybersecurity and we can't survive without technology.
No, I mean, look, businesses want to grow and they want to do what they love to do, whatever that is. Building widgets, practicing
Mhm.
law, practicing medicine, manufacturing great new products and building of buildings and all of that. Like we want them to continue to scale and grow. That's the end game of cybersecurity.
Mhm.
We want them to do it uninterrupted. We want them to be able to do it without being torpedoed unexpectedly. I mean, that's really it, right? It's like they're on a ship and they're sailing off and they don't realize that there are torpedoes heading toward them. And
Yeah,
so, how do we distract them? How do we block those? You know, how
yeah.
do
Well,
how do we
yeah.
dam those torpedoes?
Oh yeah, if it's a torpedo, well, you need some countermeasures, right? So your
Yeah.
countermeasures have to be something such as being proactive, having those human firewalls. I've always had a strong belief that combat warfare and cyber warfare are best friends. I was
Oh
in the
yeah, they're
military.
so similar. It's all like war games, isn't it? It really is.
Yes. And in the military, if you learn combat warfare and some of those tactics, you can deploy those over into
Hmm.
cybersecurity and be very successful.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about GRC. We hear a lot about it, and it's a great practice because it combines. To me, it is because it
Mhm.
combines law, application, technology. It combines leadership, and it's a great way for people who want to break into cybersecurity that aren't necessarily technical. They don't necessarily know how to code or they don't know how to hack. They're not red teamers. They may not be security analysts. That's fine. There's still a place for you in the cybersecurity community.
Yeah. Well, I look at GRC as an oversight, right?
Hmm.
Look at GRC as the cops of the IT industry, right? Is to
Yeah.
make sure that you're compliant, right? To have that oversight. But I think that when I look at GRC, I try to look at it from, the three different levels, which is the governance side, right? And just having that oversight, but also to taking it to the next level, because this is a leadership concern here.
Right.
And really saying, okay, if you're a leader then, and if you want to lead cybersecurity, then you have a practice. One is to be a risk manager. The second
Hmm.
area is to be a business champion because you have to sell cybersecurity to the board. See,
Right.
that's part of governance. And part of that risk manager is really understanding the risk nature or just the risk appetite of your organization because the board is going to ask you questions. And, like you
And
don't need
they're
to be
not
a technical.
technical. And the
No.
board is not going to be technical. And that's in the enterprise space, but even in the SMB space, you still have stakeholders, you still have boards, you still have investors, and it's still the same concept.
Right.
And you have to explain it in impactful. I mean, you can't just make it so simple that it doesn't have any impact. It has to be impactful, but it has to be relatable.
Yep. And also part of the leadership perspective is that you as a person, are you influential? What type of communication skills do you have? And that's very important as the part of governance is to drive the oversight. Now, the other area is risk. Risk is really taking it to that level and saying, okay, where, when, and how are we impacted? Okay,
Yeah.
that's the primary type of concern. Now, we know that all of these environments change a lot. Hackers are getting smart and they get sophisticated. And I think that one of the problems I see with risk is that numbers. I see organizations that get stuck on numbers all the time. Numbers are benchmarks. Let's just say, for instance, if an organization had a true cybersecurity, and if it states, okay, well, you need to have a a 90, like a 90% benchmark just to pass.
Yeah.
So when you reach the 90% benchmark, you don't stop. That's just
Right.
saying that you make the mark. But
Right.
there's a 10% factor that you really have to investigate, because you have to make sure that you still carry that risk mindset on, because the 10% could probably cause your entire environment to go down, to go offline. So it could
Yeah.
disrupt operations. So you really have to have that mindset to say, I am compliant, but I want to take it to the next level. And I think
Right.
one of the problems that a lot of organizations have too with risk is that you have to sell this to the culture that it's okay to talk about the problems that you have. Because if it's an environment and the culture is of such, it's like if you have too many problems, then we're gonna have to reprimand you. Well, you may have people that will hold information at hostage, and you don't want to do that. So part of that information is kind of what I put in the cybersecurity mindset, is that you can take risk and you can transition those to rewards. Now, I'm not saying that you wish for risks to happen, but if they do happen, then you take advantage of the opportunity. So when it comes to your compliance area, this is the side of making sure that your vulnerabilities are reduced, making sure that you follow those standards like FISMA, or if you have NIST, or if you have something
HIPAA,
else,
whatever the
HIPAA, and all
compliance
those type of
regulations
laws
are.
and organizations,
Yeah.
laws that you have to follow. So when you can manage those three, that's when you become great. But I think one of the pieces that I would see that most organizations should add into the element is looking at their cyber visibility program. Because with cyber visibility, if you don't know where you're most vulnerable at, then that's going to cause your GRC program to fail. Because
Yeah. I
it's
mean, we've talked about this before, and there's a dichotomy. There's a difference between compliance and security.
mhm.
One is part of the other. Essentially, they overlap a lot, but security is really about a reduced risk to these certain vulnerabilities, right? Depending on your footprint. But
Mhm.
compliance just means this outside organization has set a benchmark for you to
Mhm.
measure up to and to do these things. It's good, right? It's good to be compliant. Don't get me wrong. For various reasons, you don't get fined. You're able to access more funds. You're able to avoid penalty, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee security, because you could still have a lot of other risk out there and not be secure, even though you're compliant.
Yeah, you are 100% right on that. Couple of the Forbes article I wrote touched on that same point.
Yep. That's where I got it. That's
Yeah.
where I got it from. Yeah.
So there's plenty of those articles out there. Ever since I've been writing for Forbes, I always come up with different topics every month. And here, so in a couple of days, I should have an article that's going to come out and talk about AI bias recognition. Right. So that's a great
So
topic as
let's
well.
talk about that. So AI and cybersecurity, everybody thought as soon as generative AI came out, they thought all these AI attacks, cybersecurity is just going to blow up. We really haven't seen it massively. However, there have been some massive on-roads. Like there's been some incredibly exponentially fast development. For one, the red flags and phishing emails, like those have all changed because, it used to be grammar or spelling or syntax, and all that's gone because AI can write in a bunch of different languages and clean all that up. So check, right? Like AI
Hmm.
has helped cyber criminals, but AI has also helped in comparing, contrasting logs, like reviewing of logs. Like they're able to digest all those vast amounts of information and really help defenders, which is great. Then on the other side, threat actors have AI through deepfake technology, and they're leveraging that on top of social engineering, and it's really bolstering the power of social engineering. So it's and for listeners, we've talked about deepfakes a lot here because to me they're so persuasive, because in the last 6 months or so they've gotten so good. I mean, one really can't tell or decipher from the human eye when somebody's on video now. So often you have to fact check like almost every video you see because you don't know whether it's them. Some of it is very obvious, but a lot of
Hmm.
it is not. If it's a well produced one, it's really really tough to tell.
Yeah. Well, here's the spin on AI. I've done several speaking events. I don't wrote a lot of articles on AI, and I did a lot of research. And when I look at AI, there are benefits and there are rewards, and there's a conversation about whether AI is really a threat to humanity because of the speech that individuals hear is that we're going to be controlled by robots, right? In the next 25 years or so, robots are going to be controlling us.
I'm
But
not buying into that. I
no,
personally don't buy into that at all. I'm
no,
not buying into that. I've seen the robots. I've seen them. I'm impressed, like very good, but still limited application so far. I mean,
right.
in manufacturing, they're doing great things. Like there are some great things that they're doing things that humans can't do, but nobody's getting replaced. Like when I think about that fear, I'm like, okay, that's what they said. They said the exact same thing about the automobile. And I'm like, well, yeah, some mechanics of carriages and horse drawn carts might have lost their job, but we grew an entire automobile industry, right? Like, which was like thousands of times bigger. So it's like nobody really lost their job. They just had to learn some different skills, and we grew an entire industry. So
Well,
I kind of see that coming. It is generational, but that's my
right.
take on it.
What I think the confusing part is that to the public that is not involved with technology is what is the true meaning of artificial intelligence? What is it?
Right.
And what I
Great
do
point. Great point.
is that I tell individuals that AI is a mimic of humans. Whatever humans can do, AI is supposed to replace those features. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be out of the picture. It just means that it's going to supplement work. Maybe it's some of the mundane work that's going on because cyber defenders will tell you in a heartbeat. They get tired of getting these emails about they need to go and check and see which system is online, which system is offline, right? So they spend all day long trying to go through emails and doing the mundane tasks. So this is what AI can supplement the work. I think that the fear is coming from because we are in a transition. If we think back about 50 or 60 years ago, when that computer revolution happened, individuals were very afraid because everyone did manual labor. Oh, guess what?
Right.
Now we have computers. I am going to be unemployed. But what
Right.
happened? All of these IT jobs
Yeah, we're
came,
working in an industry that didn't
right?
exist when I was in
So
school.
it's so many
Right. Yeah.
labor categories that came up. And now we have all these IT jobs. Well, now what AI is going to do is AI is going to go through the same pipeline. We're going to see different jobs populate because I actually did a research a couple of weeks ago and saw that data scientists, robotics engineers, just to
Yep.
name two of the two type of job roles that are populating now up on Indeed. And
Yep.
so, the trend is starting to,
Well, and AI prompting, all of that. That's a skill.
yes.
The more you work with generative AI, you're like, man, like the difference in the answers are night and day depending on your prompt. Like it's
Well,
so like learning how to prompt is so it's a skill.
well, you know what's going to happen is someone has to program AI platforms. Someone has to
Yeah.
decide on what text response someone should be receiving through Copilot. And this is what
Right.
humans come in. We are going to be, to me, more so of the subjects to figure out how AI platforms should operate. Because the way we think and the way that we approach situations are going to be used to build AI platforms. If you look at the talent management systems now, right? And most of the talent management systems, especially for resumes, they're going to be using those extremely a lot just to accelerate the process, just to find out candidates. But the problem with using those systems is that the data sets are taking on the characteristics of your recruiters.
Right.
So, there's a fear that we have platforms that are following exactly what recruiters do. Well, the plus side is that your learning modules can have some type of restraints put in place where you can say, hey, do not check demographics. So you have that option. And I think that in the future, we're going to be able to get better at using AI, but to the public, AI is now in its baby steps. We as a people haven't even touched into the maximum or like the full extent of what AI can do. And I've always stated that in certain instances, we need to have oversight for AI. And second is, yes, we do need to have some type of limitations where you have AI works in a hybrid mode, where it's partly manual and partly AI, because you don't want to just completely have AI to do all the automation, because at the end of the day, it is a machine, and it is a machine, and it's subjected to make some type of mistakes. But you want to try to limit the use of it until you fully understand how it operates. But I think it's just used for common text information is fine. Okay, now with AI data or poisoning, then that is just taking the correct information and you put in the wrong information in. Okay, so that's a way of looking at it. One of the ways I think that it works is that if we look at your machine learning, okay, because with the machine learning, it is supposed to be the source code is supposed to be the software aspect of AI. It is that electronic brain is what it is, right? So it does all the calculation, it does all of your computation that actually should occur. Now, imagine if someone as a hacker, kind of had their hands on the code, and what if they reverse engineer the code? Now, what happened is that you invoke misinformation. Maybe you can reverse that code where it's something that is supposed to give you a positive signal and is actually giving you a negative signal, but the users are thinking that it's a positive signal. So yes, yes, yes. So you can do that. Now, to me, this is where cybersecurity comes in. Okay, because cybersecurity is supposed to be the foundation to AI. Because I've always stated that AI and cybersecurity are like best friends. So if the AI platforms need to operate, then there's a cybersecurity framework that has to be in place. Or also, if you look at cybersecurity, and if you really want to get ahead of threats, then well, you need a AI framework in place. So both of them are like best friends now. So they're working together. We're going to see a lot of changes in the future, especially with the AI SOC environment now, where like cyber defenders can have that unified threat picture. Because normally, if you go into a SOC environment, you'll go see a cyber defender there with 6 monitors, trying to look at Splunk, trying to look at maybe this asset management program. Now you got a ticketing system. And so what if we could take AI and just integrate all that information into one packet? Yes. So you correlate everything together, and it makes it easier now because all the mundane work is taken care of. So the only thing that the cyber defender has to do is to look at that one threat picture and try to figure out the possibility of a cyber attack. Oh yes. So we're well on our way. Okay. Okay. The first step is to do your research and see whether cybersecurity is for you or not. I'm going to be honest about that because you as a person who's working hard, and maybe you may go through a nonprofit organization somewhere else that actually gives the funding. You want to make sure that you are set and that cybersecurity is for you, right? The second phase is that you have to make sure that you stay committed to the process because there's a lot of studying and also to see there's a lot of learning. About 2 years ago, I posted four podcasts that talked about how to break into cybersecurity, which is 4 stages. The first stage is always talking about, okay, let's just look at college. What type of training do you need if you're in college? Well, you take those cybersecurity courses and you go and you get a degree. Done. Now, the next stage is when you're looking at breaking into cyber is that, well, you need a job. And, the problem that happens is that most of the companies state, well, we want you to have certification and experience and also education. Most people don't have all three. So, the question goes, how do you beat that around? What is it that you can do? Right, right. So is it that you need to shake hands with the right people? Yes, well, that's part of it. But there are some people that are not lucky to shake hands with the right people. So what I tell individuals is that you set up a cybersecurity environment at home. You get a lab and you go to YouTube and there's plenty of videos out there to train. They're all over. Right. So when you decide to move into the job industry, resume building is very important. You have to, right, right. So you go through those. Now the process is that certain people have gotten these interviews and like nothing happened. Why? Why didn't anything happen? Well, it's partly of your interview skills and partly of, yes, you probably don't have all the background. But if you go to YouTube and you learn a security product, and it's some of these tools you can get for free at the house. Because if you're an entry level person, let's say if you want to work on the SOC side of the house or whatever, there are some open free tools that you can use all day long. And join groups that are doing training. Go to the trade shows because this is where you meet those recruiters there, right? Too. One of the things I've always said is that if you're on a job interview and if you asked about a certain tool and if you have a lab at home, talk about it because you may not have the professional experience on the job, but you have the knowledge because you have a lab at the house. Because a lab is probably no different than what a corporation have. The only difference is that, when I first started the industry, one of my famous tools was like Tenable Nexus. And, what I did was I learned Nexus, right? I learned Nexus from the top to the bottom. And I learned about scanning, how do you scan an asset, right? Basic, very, very basic things. And I think that if you are trying to inspire yourself to move into the cybersecurity career field, that's very important to learn those tools. Tools are very important. In fact, some of the tools are probably almost the same now, because you have queries you create, so you have APIs you create, so you have logs, so you have dashboards, and they all have those same features. They just give, a couple little things are different about those tools. Now, the next step is that after you're hired, right, do you sit down now and say, so what? I tell individuals to come up with an individual development plan. Where is it that you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And, part of that is to go to the trade shows because there are, right, yes. And, there are some people that choose not to be technical. Let's just give the respect. If you choose not to be technical then, so that means you're probably going to be on the GRC side. So part of the GRC side is to go and understand risk, is to understand management. That's right. Because people that work in IT and cyber, they don't know everything. I do not know everything. Okay? It's such a large industry, and I tell individual, find your sweet spot, study and understand that GRC may be for you, or you may just be one of those person that likes to do pen testing, or just maybe you are kind of one of the person that likes to do some of the administration work with cloud services and so forth, right? And maybe it's certain people that gain all the skill sets and figure out that they like teaching, they want to be an instructor. And you find others that just like software programming, to sit there every day with Python. And I've always said that study is very important, but studying the IT industry and also studying cyber and seeing where all the work is shaping and taking place. And now, so with the involvement of AI, it's kind of reshaping the way we probably going to see cybersecurity in the next 10 years, because some of the work that, well, what I see the labor industry changing for all of technology. Okay, so I'm going to make that true. I see that within these organizations, then that's going to be advanced information that they have so they can predict cyber attacks and so forth, right? Because if you think about the amount of time a cyber defender spend trying to analyze all these data feeds, it may take 2, maybe 3 hours and all day. And, AI, we can do it within a couple of minutes. So you have your advanced information, but also too, along the technology scope, we're going to integrate AI and cybersecurity into areas that are that are unknown now. And I give one because about a month ago, I actually did a panel session up in Montreal, Canada, and it was on AI and the modern warfare, because the military now is starting to incorporate AI into its systems, and those are not all weapon systems, but that is the future trend of where we're headed. And so, yes, well, a part of that is because of government oversight. There's been some corporations that have been charged or failed, has been penalized by the government because they failed some cybersecurity practices and so forth. So what I see in the future is that a lot of these assessments we have are going to be real time, and also too, I think that a lot of organization is pretty much going to change the way that they approach and try to manage cybersecurity, because if you're mandated and if you have a lot of oversight over you, well, you have to be very careful and make sure that you do have all your elements in place. That's going to force organizations to be smarter, but at the same time, we're going to see a lot of labor changing. Labor is going to change. What is the CISO going to be responsible for? Maybe there is going to be a new role that pop up, which is someone that works under the CISO, right? And there's going to be a new title given where they're going to be responsible for like most of the risk management work, where they free up the CISO. Maybe some of that is going to happen. But I actually think that in the future, I think that as far as information sharing, we're going to be sharing a lot more information. About 20 or 30 years ago, organizations were very shy about trying to share information because of their reputation, because you don't want that to go out to the public because it may affect your customer base. But I think that we're going to move into an element now where it's okay to have those conversations, because we're going to realize that cybersecurity is part of everything that we do. And no one is going to be held, you can't really take an organization and say, if you fail, then I'm going to charge you. Well, you have to say that, if you follow the right practices and you do what you're supposed to do, then you know what, you are doing the standard. And standard is very important, because in the future, we often say, what is going to be the standard for cybersecurity in the future? No. Well, yeah. Yeah, I think that cybersecurity is going to be integrated into every practice and mostly anything we do in the future, because As I said before, I think it's going to become a quality of life issue. It's just like everyone has to eat every day. Well, guess what? We all need cybersecurity because we have smart devices and we have tablets and we have all of these type of endpoints that have need for cybersecurity. So it's going to be a quality of life issue, but I think that the regular public is going to be smart about cybersecurity as well too, because there is no way around it. And if it becomes a quality of life, then everyone has to get smart about cyber. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be experts. They're going to be smart enough to take care of themselves. Well, I just want to make right. I think that one of the things that I see happening, and like this is based on an article that I wrote about 2 months ago. I said that I like cybersecurity awareness, but I think that cybersecurity awareness needs to move to the next level. And I've always talked about security activation is the concept I use. And I said that when you speak about cyber awareness, then you're stating that someone has the knowledge to understand practices. But when you put those practices to work, that's when security activation happens. And I think that's the way for the future, is that we're going to be more so into the role of activating cyber security versus just holding on to the awareness all the time. And I've always said that people are smart and people have the knowledge. They just need to activate the knowledge. That's it. Okay, then you take care.
Well, that wraps this up. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our episode. The next one is coming right up. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast and downloading on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for watching.